Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
We have a special guest on the phone. His name is Greg Andrew. Greg is also known as the Rocket Man because he is, according to all reports, the very finest Elton John tribute artist going around. Good morning to you, Greg.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Neil.
How are you doing?
Fantastic. Yeah, really great. Lovely to be with you.
Tell us, Nowra last night, how did it all go?
Brilliant. Yeah, we had a great time in Nowra last night. Great crowd, really right into it. And, just really, really enjoyable performing these songs.
And so then you're going to get in the car and drive to Penrith tonight. We will talk about other dates shortly, but if anyone is listening in the western suburbs of Sydney, get out to Penrith tonight to the Joan Sutherland Performing Arts Centre. That's where you will be.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Phew, that's a relief.
Greg, with such a fine body of work that Elton John has produced, when you're putting a show together, how do you select from that? Is it your personal choices, or do you put together some sort of story that his music has created?
Yeah, great question. In the format that we're doing this run of shows in, it's a little bit easier because we're sticking to the theme of the 50th anniversary of the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album. So in the first set, we do songs exclusively from that album, so before going to the second set where you're doing the greatest hits, of course. But so in this one, when you theme such a great commemorative show, it makes it a little bit easier. Then I go through picking the songs that I think in the format of, making a medley out of three of them, just those sort of lesser known ones, or just refreshing people's memory of these songs that came out 50 years ago.
So obviously, and we'll talk a bit about how it all started and get back to all that shortly, but let's talk about the show a little bit. I know that, for example, Pink Floyd often used to play one of their albums start to finish. Is that what we can expect from the first part of this show, that you basically play Goodbye Yellow Brick Road all the way through, or is it just selections from it?
No, it'll be selections from it, because as lovely as it would be to do that, the show can't go for 4 hours.
Well, it can.
It's not
well, from the audience it can. I don't know about you. You mightn't like it.
It'd be wonderful, but the thing is, there's songs that are people associate with the greatest hits, like Benny and the Jets, Candle in the Wind, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Those ones people are really familiar with, and to a lesser extent, Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. They're wonderful songs that not only Elton fanatics know really well, I think most of the public would know those pretty well. There's a selection of other songs we include in there that are what I call, well, in my view, it's not saying they're the next best songs, but like things like Harmony, which ended, that was the last song on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album. But it's a beautiful song, and it's a song that was very popular in the mid-'70s, right through to the '80s. Elton was doing it in his live concerts. And that one, Grey Seal, he still does occasionally now. So they're still popular songs, but those sort of things, and making a medley out of, say, three other songs, it's a way of getting through the album in the time we've got for the first set, so it works really well.
We spoke to, and the reason I mentioned Pink Floyd, we spoke to a chap who is part of a tribute band for Pink Floyd, and we asked him the same question. Obviously, if we go back to your initial involvement in this, to get to where you are now, effectively doing an Elton John concert, if you like, at what point did you say, actually, you know what, I could be Elton John and actually play all his music, rather than, I'm assuming, when you started playing other stuff as well?
Yes. Well, what seems almost a previous life, I've always been a professional musician, but for 20 years I actually played piano and sang in all the better, I travelled a lot with all the best casinos, resorts, piano bar scene, you know what I mean? So I travelled a lot in Australia for 20 years, and 15 years ago it was just a perfect storm, so to speak, where anywhere I went, you could say I was a little bit of a slow learner, but everywhere I went, people would comment on saying, "Oh, can you sing us another Elton John song?" Or, "Has anyone told you actually look like Elton John?" All these sort of things. And after hearing it for probably over 8 years, believe it or not, I thought, well, if everyone's saying this, I might look into it. But until that point, I never really thought about doing the tribute show. But it's been wonderful ever since for the last 15 years.
So take us right back. You obviously learned to play the piano when you were a kid. Was it something that you thought you'd want to be a professional musician when you grew up, or was it something that sort of you accidentally fell into or you were forced into as a kid to go and learn the piano?
Yeah. I can remember, I think I was around 10 years of age. Mum and Dad just asked me, did I want to learn piano? And even though they were school teachers, they were musical. So Mum played violin and piano, and Dad played saxophone and piano. And so music, growing up as a kid, music was quite big. But I started learning classical piano, so I was trained classically and took to it and advanced through the grades quite quickly, actually. And so to the point where when I was left school after grade 12, I went to the Conservatorium of Music in Queensland and went through that, and all classical music. And literally at the end of that, I answered it. I thought, what am I going to do now? I still didn't really know what I was going to do, believe it or not. And I was at the age of 21, and answered an ad at an island resort. Thought, I'll go and play keys in a band, the Island Resort Band at the time. And I thought that'll be fun for a few months and work out what I'm going to do. And I never left. So it was quite funny. I went into all the island resorts from that point, played a wide variety of music, and I think it you develop your piano style as well.
Hey, on that theme, did you have the little Billy Joel Piano Man experience of playing songs for people to help live their life moments?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny when you say Piano Man. I'd love to get into a conversation, let's say, with Billy Joel, because I think I've played that song more than he has. Yeah.
Am I right in saying they toured together, didn't they, Elton John and Billy Joel in the 80s? Is that right?
Yes, they did. That's exactly right. A little bit later on, believe it or not, after this tour is finished for my solo thing, I'm actually touring. It's 25 years ago. So we're doing a lot of shows throughout Victoria as the Elton and Billy 25th anniversary. So that's late. That's July and August this year.
And that's as though I did my research, and that's a complete not a fluke that came out. That's all good. And so, you're obviously travelling around with this show. The band that you have with you take with them, or is it a group that you sort of pick up someone where you go along, sort of stuff?
No. Well, this show is quite unique because what we do, I have Daniel Gibney on percussion, and so it's just the two of us on stage for this show. When we strip the songs back, it allows me to talk about that. It's a more intimate way of doing the songs. When I travel with my 7-piece band, we just, for what it's, yes, there's little stories I can tell, but it's more belting out all the hits, just reenacting a lot of those great hits. This one is more intimate, where I can actually explain a little bit about the songs. There's a couple of very interesting points that people find interesting that are lost in the actual, you just don't know unless you're really that way inclined to do a lot of research into it. But also I touch on a lot of, with travel, I've been very lucky to do, perform this Elton tribute all over the world. So with doing that, there's some what I call very funny stories along the way of possible mistaken identity, and things go a bit chaos, and it allows you to interact with the crowd that way. So we strip the songs back. We use a lot of audio-visual, with our backdrops and all that sort of stuff. So it works. The feedback's been really, really good. We've loved the feedback on it.
Greg, that's a perfect segue to my next question, which is about the emotion of the songs. When someone writes a song, and we talk about Billy Joel's Piano Man, and sings it so often, but it's his song, it's his emotion, it's his passion. When you're being someone else, but you've got to perform their music over and over and over again to make it work. And let's look at Candle in the Wind is a song that is clearly come from a point of absolute passion. Is it difficult for you to deliver not just the look and the sound, but also the emotion in those songs?
Yeah, it's the thing with doing this. I'm very lucky where obviously piano's my main instrument. The timbre of my voice is similar to Elton's voice, and the emotion. I really, really love the songs I perform. You know, doing these songs, yes, I've done them hundreds of times myself, but I still really, really enjoy the songs and know what the songs mean to other people, you know. So just Candle in the Wind, for example, there's been, you know, a couple of versions of that, obviously, but we stick to the original version. But that song is very emotional for a lot of people. And for me to sing it, I suppose there's different little memories or meanings, you know, of singing it so many times that you think of, you try not to go, you know, think of too much while you're singing, but you just try and stay in the moment. But there's things that creep in when you think of different lyrics and, you know, that sort of thing, of different experiences you've had or, you know, wonderful times you've had, you know, that sort of thing. So it really helps you perform the song.
So you can actually perform on the quality of the lyric as opposed to needing to be an actor on top of a singer and a piano player.
Well, for me, that's how it works.
Yeah, that's good.
The more relaxed and natural I am, as to the core of myself, it's not. It comes across. You know, yes, I've got Elton mannerisms, and yes, there's things I've worked on, but the essence is I'm very fortunate that when I relax and deliver the song, yeah, it seems to all work for people. Not only tie into the Eltonism, so to speak, but believable in the delivery of the song.
And in between songs, Greg, you know, we've picked up the fact that you don't have an accent that sounds like you're from Pinner. Instead, you sound a little bit like you're from Queensland.
Right.
In between times, and you're doing the stories and stuff, effectively breaking character. Do you break character, or in fact, do you, you know, I'm interested in how that works.
Well, as a tribute, what I've always found, the interesting part of doing a tribute to a person that's still alive, for whatever term, you know, so everyone, what has always worked for me has been the tribute side of things is more my thing, where I can. There's enough people have always commented. It's so, in using their words, it's so believable what I do that I'm lucky through my looks, piano playing, timbre, all this sort of stuff. When I sing, that's the believable part. That I think, wow, you know, that's so amazing. This guy can do what he can do. But everyone knows I'm not Elton John. You know what I mean? So what has always worked for me is that when I've told stories or talked about something, I've always, rather than being as Elton John, which to me isn't believable, like this is when I wrote this, or this is when I did that. It's always been better and to do it speaking respectfully about Elton John and Bernie Taupin, about the different things there. So I come out of, when I say out of character, I be myself to deliver the stories and deliver this thing. It's always worked really, really well.
The fine line between tribute and impersonation.
Yeah. Well, impersonation is that you are trying to be exactly that person in voice, in everything, as in speaking, voice, acting. This is me, you know, when I did this, and just my opinion. Over the years, I think it's always worked really, really well, and I think what's been successful is the way I've delivered the show in this manner, rather than me try and be everything that speaking like Elton John all the time.
When you've played so many songs from great artists in your early days as a piano man on those in the early days, when you go to this particular Elton John Bernie Taupin combination and play them constantly, does it make you realise how extraordinary that combination has been on the music industry?
Oh, absolutely. You know, like just incredible. Not only the amount of work they put out in over 50 years, the quality of it, and, you know, just their songwriting style together even is so different to what you'd call a normal, where they never go into the same room themselves, you know, so then they're never in the same room by themselves, so they work independently to come up with these things, which is just phenomenal.
So, in terms of the songwriting combination, we've got the Lennon McCartneys, we've got the John Talbot, if you will. Lennon and McCartney were very sort of tight in a sort of 7 or 8 year period. These guys, as you say, have been doing this for 30 or 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular era that you go, bang, that's where they peaked? Or is it just across the whole 40, 50 years?
Well, I must say I'm probably a little bit of a tragic, where I love, you know, all the eras of music that they've written. Now, obviously, the 70s were a prolific era, and you know, like a lot of those greatest hits that everyone loves and adores came from the 70s. But you know, the 80s was another era where, you know, there's still some of the greatest hits came from, and into the 90s was things that, you know, some things like, for example, Sacrifice, which, believe it or not, was Elton's first ever number one hit in his own country. So he had to wait till 1990 to get a number one hit in Britain, in the UK, which is just phenomenal when you think about it, you know. Yes, before everyone says, oh, that's not true, he did write, obviously, Don't Go Breaking My Heart in 1976 with Kiki D. Well, he didn't write, Bernie and he wrote it, but they wrote it under the pseudonyms of Carte Blanche and, not the other name was escapes me, but it wasn't Elton John and Bernie Taupin. So to have you know, there's eras there that are all across all things, and then he came into the songwriting, well, really the musical theatre world in '94 with The Lion King and different things like that, where Bernie didn't write for that, but it opened another world for Elton, doing, you know, all the musicals, Billy Elliot and Aida and all that sort of stuff as well. So there's a lot of, it's just amazing to have, you know, the volume of work they've done over the generations, you know, and just to keep sort of, for whatever term, his profile's been reborn a number of times in every decade. When you get, you know, when you think of The Lion King in '94, well, grandparents who were looking after the grandchildren, well, everyone knew The Lion King.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was that sort of thing that came through. So, and even in recent times, not that, I must say, in all honesty, I'm not a huge fan of the later stuff, like with Dua Lipa, but you know, it works, and it's, you know, being number one in the charts again, you know, which is quite phenomenal, as he always says, to have, you know, two number one hits last year, and he's, you know, well into his 70s.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you the obvious question that everyone goes, you know, oh, why don't you ask me what my favourite kid is? We're going to send you off onto a desert island by yourself. There's a record player, you have to take one Elton John album with you, and you can't have Greatest Hits, Volume 1, 2, or the very best of, any of those. Studio album, which one do you take?
Well, you know, yeah, it is very difficult, that question, but, you know, probably because of my background, I love his there's so many albums, honestly, but the 1970 original Elton John, Your Song album.
Yep.
That is what I call quintessential Elton. You know, piano voice. It's that era of just the birth of the singer-songwriter, because if you go back in musical history, as you know, that people wrote songs and they had bands that sang them. No one really wrote and performed their own songs. So it gave rise, in my opinion, to the singer-songwriter. But just the essence of just, you know, he started very basically there with, you know, Dee Murray on bass and Nigel Olsson on drums, a three-piece. And I love all those songs on that album. It's, you know, it's a great album.
Well, for the record, mine's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Rob, yours?
You didn't want me to say the...
I don't know. I just like his songs. I don't go and
I know.
buy albums.
Well, Greg, we do need to get going, but we should tell the good folks, and the whole reason that, apart from the fact it's good to have a chat about your music and stuff, is that 2 weeks from today, that is Saturday the 17th of June at the Palais Theatre in Geelong, you will be here performing what I think is called the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road 50th anniversary album concert experience thing. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's it. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary, obviously, of the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album.
Yep.
As well as doing many greatest hits as well. But, really, really looking forward to it at the Palais Geelong. Looking forward to seeing everyone there and enjoying all these wonderful songs.
And of course, if you are listening, we've got an audience all over Australia, Greg. There's that bloke that listens in WA.
Yeah, that's right.
So we should also let folk who are in Melbourne listening know that on Sunday the 18th, so the next day, Chapel off Chapel, you are also performing up there as well. So plenty of opportunities. And then go to the website, which is rocketmanflyingsolo.com.au. I made the mistake of going to the upcoming shows page. And if you don't have a show within 50 k's of where you live in a very remote part of Australia. There are shows coming out of our shows. So make sure you go and have a look at that. Now, Greg, we are going to hear your version of an Elton John song to say goodbye to you. With Elton himself now stopping his going around the world performing his Greg Andrew tribute show, what are you finding more likely to be busy or less likely, do you reckon?
I think more. It's been I'm very respectful of the fact, I'm as big a fan as anyone else, believe it or not, so I loved, I didn't miss out on going to any of the shows, you know what I mean? I didn't go to every show when he was out here, but I went to quite a few of them. So I'll miss that factor myself, but in my own show, I think doing the songs well, they are timeless songs, so a lot of people have grown up with these songs. They're generational, as I said. I think the songs are definitely going to live on, so I think performing those songs over the years to come are going to be as much in demand. I think people are going to really enjoy them going forward as well. So looking forward to, different places to tour, especially in Australia, different places to tour and different experiences and more people enjoying these wonderful songs.
Well, Saturday the 17th of June at the Palais Theatre in Geelong. Sunday the 18th of June, Chapel off Chapel in St Kilda. Just go to the websites for those two venues. You'll be able to get tickets. Greg, Andrew, it's been a terrific opportunity to chat to you today, and we're going to go out with this in the background, a song called Rocket Man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greg. Best wishes.
See you, mate.
Thank you.